We're lucky today. We have a World War II veteran here. Actually, my favorite World War II veteran here. This is Arthur Douglas Wilson. Art, tell the people what years you served and in what war.
I served in the South Pacific in what they call the Asiatic Pacific area.
Tell us where you went.
Most of it was in New Guinea, and then it involved a lot of the smaller islands. There was some of them. It was one Biak, and there was Halmahera, and the Philippines, Borneo. So that was where our ship spent most of its time. Yes.
Art is sharing with us some of his World War II photographs. Some of them were so old and damaged we had to enhance them to make them show up a little bit better. A few of them came out pretty well still in black and white, but most of them needed a little help. So bear with us because you're going to see sights you have never seen before. And thank you, Art, for sharing this extremely memorable part of our history in this country and your personal life. Please welcome Art Wilson, who is going to show us some unforgettable pictures from World War II.
Well, this picture here is one of the airstrips over in New Guinea. They just had a small strip enough for just one plane, and we used to go over there and talk to the pilots of these planes. One time there was a P-38, and so we asked one of the pilots which kind of plane they liked the best, and this one said, well, I like the P-38s the best because they got two engines. And one time I saw one come in with only one engine running, and half of one of the tail had double tails on it. One of the tails was blowing off, and one of the engines wasn't running, but he brought it back. So what he was getting at was, it's nice to be able to have an extra engine in case you lose one. You know? This here is a Japanese landing craft that was left on the beach. I think that was in a place called Madang, one of the small islands over there. That's our storekeeper. They're pointing to it. And this one here shows the beach where it was bombarded by aircraft before they had a landing. They were going to have the landing crafts go in, and they went in and they bombarded the beach real good to make sure it was clear before they went in. So that's what that smoke is from. And this one here is a half of an LST. I was on watch when I heard the general quarters alarm go off. So having binoculars, why I found where it was at, and I thought at first it was a carrier way off because there was no superstructure on it, and it had happened that the whole after half of the ship sank and took the whole Navy crew with it, and all that was left was just a front part with where they had some trucks and tanks down in the hold, and this was all that was left of it. And so they told us to pick up the worst survivors first, the ones that were hurt the worst, get them first. So we started picking them up. We picked up 30 of them all together, and so when we were cruising looking for some that were hurt bad, why we saw this one man in a small life raft, so we figured he was all not doing bad, so we started looking more. Well, when we finally got to him, he had been hit right in the stomach and part of his insides were hanging out. Oh. And so they went and got him, he had diesel oil all over him. So they went and picked him up, and the first chance they got him to a hospital ship. And about a year later, we were getting supplies from another ship, and this fella happened to be on the deck up on top, and he survived that all. And he was real glad to see all the old crew, yeah.
Wow.
And this next one is this shows one of the cruisers down in some of the convoys that we were protecting. And this one here shows some of the New Guinea natives and some of their outrigger canoes, yeah. And this is another native village, and a whole bunch of the natives there with, I see there's one of the sailors there. A lot of them had their huts built up on stilts in the water. Now, I don't know what that was for, but unless it was to protect them from wild animals, but I don't know. I saw quite a few of them were like that. And here's another native village here. And you can see their boats and their other huts they had there. This picture here is Hollandia, New Guinea. It's a very, very large inlet, and up above this harbor, up in the mountains there, was a village, and they had a big lake up there. And what was really funny, we had both of our officer stewards were up there, you know, and this one of them was a real good guy. So these little native kids all saw him, of course, having dark skin, and they all run up there to him, and he says, "Well, come on, everybody," he says, "come over and see old Uncle Gene." But that was a beautiful lake, and they had a kind of a retreat back there for anybody that wanted to go up there and stay like on a leave where they could go swimming or fishing. So it was really beautiful. And this is me when I first got back from overseas. And here's a picture of me aboard the ship. That was just before I was getting ready to go on Liberty, and I forget where it was at. I think it was in Australia someplace. This is a picture at a studio in Miami, Florida. And this lady here, she used to come in and pose with all the guys. But it made it look pretty good. It made it look like you really had a nice looking girlfriend, but everybody did, you know. This picture here is Cairns, Australia. That was a small town up north of Brisbane. There's down to the southern part on the east coast of Australia was Sydney, and then Brisbane was further north, and then this little place of Cairns. So they stopped there and gave everybody liberty. We was there for 2 days, and they gave half of them liberty and one day, and then half the other, and then we left. But that was really quite a fun place. And here we are back in that same studio, and when we go in for pictures, well, they'd have people pose with us, or they had this one with us, speedboat that you stood behind, and it looks like you're in the boat. This is me standing up here down in our mess hall, and this is after hours when the people were down there listening to the radio, writing letters, or just generally goofing off. This is our ship when we were in dry dock. We would come into dry dock occasionally to get the barnacles scraped off of it, because when the barnacles get too heavy on the bottom of the ship, it slows you down where you can't go as fast as you could. So we have to go into dry dock and scrape that off and then repaint the bottom, yeah. And this here was in, I think this here was in Brisbane, yeah. Brisbane, Australia. This is me and one of my good buddies. That's my best buddy with me there, yeah. That's me and him, yeah. This is after one of the invasions, and I don't know what that smoke is, but this was after they had invaded this one island there and got it secured, but I don't know what that smoke is. Something burned up over there. This here is where they bombarded the beach and make it safe for the landing craft to go in. And here's the ship again at dry dock. As you can see, up to the left and up on the bow, you can see where it's been hit and wrinkled. That happened one time when we were coming in to the dock to tie up. There was another ship just like ours already tied up that we were coming up behind. And something happened where the engines wouldn't restart. And so that's where they run into the back of that ship and wrinkled up the bow, yeah. There is a Japanese fighter plane that had crashed there. And that was one of the part of the old village there, and just a bunch of pile of junk around there. But that's a Japanese Zero.
Was it shot down there?
Yeah, it was shot down. Yeah.
Wow. Did you see a lot of those?
Well, I saw one of them that flew by our ship one time. When we were out to sea, and he was coming from the other direction, and somebody reported it and it came by, and it came by so close you could see the guy sitting in it with a big old red spot on the side of it.
Wow.
That is when we were in dry dock, and that one fellow leaning on that is the propeller from the plane. And right up above him, it looks like a great big door. That is one of the rudders. And we were in the dry dock just for maintenance, to scrape the barnacles off and repaint the bottom. That is a picture of the flying bridge where those 3 Japanese flags are. 2 of them were for airplanes, and the one was a submarine that we got. It was where a plane had been shot down and crashed and burned over there.
And the big ship is a cruiser?
It's a cruiser, yeah. It's a big ship, yeah. That is our sleeping compartment there. That's the bunks. You can see the bunks are all lashed up to make more room in there. And that fella sitting alongside me was our boatswain mate, one of my good buddies. That's a cruiser there, and all that smoke is they had just bombarded the beach, and that was the smoke from the big guns. This took place down in Borneo, right off the coast of Borneo. This is a picture up on the flying bridge, and the man in the middle is an officer, and the other 2 fellows are just crew members, and we had fellows on watch all over the ship, on the flying bridge, on the signal bridge, and they had just everybody, every place, looking out for airplanes or ships or whatever.
Wow.
This here picture is when we were in dry dock down in Australia. Like I was saying, we have to come in periodically and have the barnacles
scraped off the bottom, and then get it repainted, because the barnacles on there hold down your speed. So they like to keep the bottom of it real smooth so that it doesn't slow you down. This is when they were having a landing on one of the islands. Our ship anchored out with another bunch of ships, where it made a lane in between the two rows of ships where the landing craft would go in.
And this here shows landing craft going in. Some of those landings, our ship was what they called a control ship. We would go in toward the land and drop the anchor, and there'd be one of them over to our starboard side, probably 80 or 100 yards away, would drop his anchor, and then there'd be two of them behind us do it. And that gave a lane for the landing craft to go in. And that's what this is, a landing craft going in. This here is one of those runways in New Guinea. And these planes here, I think that one is a couple of B-25 medium bombers. The pictures are awful faded, you know, from being so old.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
And this is just a part of the landing party.
Thank you.
Most of those islands had an airstrip. It was metal that they lay down because it rained so much over there that if they didn't do that, why, it would just be a big mud hole. So they used to just accommodate, well, maybe a dozen or so planes. And there's some P-38s. Yeah, those are P-38s there that are sitting, yeah.
They had to lay metal on the ground?
Pardon?
You say they laid metal down?
Yeah, it was big pieces of metal, but it would interlock, and they had holes in them, probably about 3-inch holes in them, and I guess I must have make them lighter or something. I don't know, but that's what they landed on. Yeah.
Art, tell us about your ship.
Well, it was a PC 1120, and that PC meant patrol craft, and it was 175 feet long, and that was a anti-submarine equipped ship with depth charges and what they called them Y guns. They had two of them that sat on the deck, and they had they were pointed to the side, and each one of them had a depth charge attached to it. And when they would lay out a pattern of depth charges, they would drop one, and then as they progressed a little faster, they would throw two of them off to the side, and then pretty quickly they'd drop another one, so they'd have 4 charges in a pattern. Yeah, but you had to move fast, because we didn't one time, and they didn't get out of the way of it, and it went off, and the aft of our ship raised up out of the water. So the next time they sped her up a little bit. I was at Hawaii. This was probably in the 1980s, and I'm standing there by this map, and this was in the area where our ship did all of our work. The ones that had people that had never crossed the equator were referred to as polywogs. And after you passed the equator, you were then called a shellback. So this is when we crossed the equator. And even our skipper had never crossed the equator, so he was with the rest of the polywogs. And then also it shows here in August of '43 that we were authorized to wear the Asiatic and Pacific campaign ribbon. This picture is from 1938 when I was growing up in Oceanside, California. And I was really out on the town there. I had my suit on. That was 1938, so I was a sophomore in high school. This here is a birthday party that I had gone to when we were kids, but unfortunately, I looked to one side and I'm right behind one of the girls, and you can't see me. I'm in the front row there, and I'm in the second one from the left with that one of those caps on, looking up toward the top bunch. So mine doesn't show. This picture here was 1927.
And that's kind of amazing because in two of those pictures you're hiding behind the girls, and you'd never know it today with all your dancing and all your lady friends that you ever ducked behind a girl during a picture.
Yeah, I was just, no matter where I went, I was always around a bunch of girls. That's what Linda always accused me of that. But I'd only do it if I had a chance. This is my, this is my 5th grade class. 3rd row from the bottom. In this picture here, I'm in the 2nd row.
You show up good in that one. Yeah, you're easy to find because all the girls are dressed in light colors, and then there's you.
Yeah, I think I'm on the 3rd row. I'm on the top row, I think. The 3rd row from the bottom, and then the 7th from the left. Yeah, I'm on the top row there. And then one of my buddies, there was one of my classmates was born on the same. He and I had birthdays on the same day.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That picture's particularly cute because now you've matured enough that you're not ducking behind any girls. How old were you when that picture was taken?
Well, it was 1933, so I was 12, I think.
12. Yeah. Already now you're getting confident.
Took the family on a vacation trip up the coast. We went up as far as Ukiah, and we went up the coast, and we stopped at a little place called Albion, and they had a lake up there, and this is me and my middle son. We're on a rowboat out in the lake there. See, there's no date on this, and this must have been about 1957. And this is my second wife at our wedding reception. Believe it or not, that cake made it in there without falling over, as high as it was. And that's me and my late wife. That was about 1973. This is the first car that I had when I got out of the Navy. My car that I left, one of my brothers came home on leave and used my car and wrecked it, so I didn't have a car when I got home. So I bought this one here. It wasn't really much of a car. It was a 37 Nash, and I never cared for the car, but that's me and my first wife's young brother. That's me with a light colored pants on. This is when I lived in Scotia, and that is my middle son. This was in about 1973, I believe. After my late wife and I were married, I got to doing macrame for a hobby, and I made quite a few things, and this was one of my better ones here. This was had 2 redwood shelves in it, And I was really proud of that one. I gave it to one of my step-granddaughters.
And tell us about your ship.
The ship I was on was a anti-submarine ship. It was 175 feet long, and it had depth charges, and it had K guns, and heavily armed with machine guns.
Tell us what happened to your ship. Your ship sort of became an historical item when you returned. Tell us what happened to your ship.
It first went to the Greenpeace. It became a Greenpeace ship. They altered the deck on it, and it made it look a lot different. But then they got rid of it, and it went to Hawaii, and was a tourist ship. And then later on, in its later days, it went to Vallejo, and there was tied up there at the dock, and a bunch of hippies bought it for a retreat. And it finally became rusted through and sunk right at the dock, and then it was scrapped out.
I want to thank Art because I had the opportunity to do this interview. It's a two-part series, so stay tuned because there will be